The Deep Space Monitoring Station hummed quietly as Jake Morrison sat at his communication desk. The night shift was usually boring. Most signals came from cargo ships reporting their locations or colonies asking for supply drops. Jake had been doing this job for 3 years, and he thought he had heard every type of message possible. Lisa Grant worked at the station next to him. She was the best signal decoder on the base, able to understand messages in over 40 different alien languages. Tonight, she was reading reports from mining operations in the outer systems. Everything seemed normal until her equipment started making strange noises. "Jake, come look at this," Lisa called out. Her voice sounded worried, getting something weird on the emergency channel. Jake rolled his chair over to Lisa's workstation. The screen showed wave patterns he had never seen before. The signal was weak and kept cutting in and out. Static filled most of the transmission, but there were clearly voices underneath the noise. "Can you clean it up?" Lisa worked. Her controls, trying to filter out the interference, slowly words started to become clear. The language was one Jake recognized as Zephyrian, a peaceful alien race that lived in the Outer Rim territories. But something was very wrong with this message. The voices sounded terrified. "Help us," the transmission said. "They came from nowhere. Our weapons do nothing. They breathe poison and walk through fire. We cannot stop them. Please, anyone who receives this message, stay away from the Zephyrian Commonwealth. Do not come here. They will kill you too." Message repeated several times before the signal died completely. Jake and Lisa stared at each other in silence. In all their years of monitoring space communications, they had never heard anything like this. "Should we report this?" Lisa asked. "Yes." "Right away?" Jake replied. He was already reaching for the emergency communication panel. Within an hour, Captain Ryan Brooks received the report aboard the exploration vessel U.S. Horizon. The ship was currently docked at Earth Station 1, taking on supplies for a routine survey mission. Captain Brooks was a veteran space explorer who had led dozens of missions to unknown worlds. He had dealt with hostile aliens before, but this report troubled him. Dr. Amanda Torres sat across from Captain Brooks in his ready room. She was the ship's chief science officer, a brilliant woman who specialized in studying alien life forms. She had read the transmission report 3 times and was still trying to make sense of it. "The Zephyrians are not the type to panic easily," Dr. Torres said. "They have been exploring space for over 200 years. If something scared them this badly, it must be serious." Captain Brooks nodded. "What do we know about their territory?" "The Zephyrian Commonwealth controls about 20 star systems on the Galactic Rim," Dr. Torres explained. "They are mostly traders and scientists. Their military is small and focused on defense. They have never been involved in any major conflicts." Kevin Walsh, the ship's security chief, entered the ready room. He was a tall man with broad shoulders who had served in the Earth Defense Force before joining the Exploration Service. His job was to keep the crew safe during dangerous missions. "Captain, I've been reviewing our tactical reports on the Zephyrian region," Kevin said. 3 weeks ago, we lost contact with 2 of our trading posts in that area. We thought it was just communication equipment failures. Now we know better," Captain Brooks said grimly. "Kevin, what's the status of our weapons and shields?" "All systems are working perfectly," Kevin replied. "We have the latest plasma cannons and particle beam weapons. Our shields can stop most known alien weapons." Captain Brooks turned to Samantha. Reed is chief engineer. She had joined the meeting to discuss the ship's readiness for a potentially dangerous mission. Samantha was known throughout the fleet for her ability to keep ships running under the worst conditions. "How long would it take to reach Zephyrian space?" Captain Brooks asked. "About 3 weeks through hyperspace," Samantha answered. "The Horizon is in perfect condition. All engines are running at full efficiency." Captain Brooks made his decision. "We're going to investigate. Prepare the ship for immediate departure. I want all departments ready for potential combat situations." Over the next few hours, the crew of the UES Horizon prepared for their mission. The ship carried a crew of 150 people, including scientists, engineers, medical staff, and security personnel. Most of them had no idea what they might face in Zephyrian space, Dr. Torres spent her time studying everything the human database contained about hostile alien species. She found reports of aggressive races like the Krell pirates and the Savage clans, but nothing that matched the description from the Zephyrian distress call. The message had mentioned creatures that could breathe poison and walk through fire. No known species had those abilities. Kevin Walsh drilled his security teams constantly during the 3-week journey. He ran combat simulations and weapons training exercises every day. His soldiers were the best trained in the human fleet, but he worried that their standard tactics might not work against unknown enemies. Samantha Reed kept the ship's engines running at maximum efficiency. She also worked on improving the ship's defenses, modifying the shield generators to handle different types of energy weapons. If they were going into a fight, she wanted the Horizon to be ready. As they traveled through hyperspace, more disturbing reports reached them through the communication networks. Other alien races were losing contact with colonies near Zephyrian space. The Altarian Republic reported that 3 of their research stations had gone silent. The Centauri Trade Federation said that several of their cargo ships had disappeared without sending distress calls. Jake Morrison and Lisa Grant continued monitoring communications from their station back on Earth. They intercepted fragments of messages from the affected regions. Most were too damaged to understand completely, but the words they could make out painted a terrifying picture. The attacking creatures seemed to be spreading quickly through the Outer Rim territories. "They don't just kill," one partial message said. "They change everything. The air becomes poison. The ground burns. Nothing can live where they have been." Another message was even more frightening. "We tried to evacuate the children first. The creatures followed our ships. They can survive in space without protection. How is that possible?" When the UES Horizon finally reached the edge of Zephyrian space, Captain Brooks ordered all sensors to maximum range. What they found shocked everyone on the bridge. Entire star systems showed signs of massive destruction. Planets that once supported millions of people now glowed with strange energy signatures. Captain called Lieutenant Peters from the sensor station. "I'm detecting huge debris fields around the Zephyrian homeworld. There are pieces of ships everywhere, but they don't look like they were destroyed by normal weapons." Dr. Torres studied the sensor readings. The metal appears to have been melted and then reformed. Whatever did this used incredibly high temperatures. Kevin Walsh checked the tactical displays. "I'm not seeing any enemy ships in the immediate area. It's either they moved on or they're hiding." Captain Brooks stared at the main screen, which showed the devastation of what had once been a thriving alien civilization.
At the Zephyrian Commonwealth
had been completely destroyed in just a few weeks. Whatever had attacked them possessed power beyond anything humans had ever encountered. "Take us deeper into the system," Captain Brooks ordered. "But keep all weapons ready and shields at maximum. We need to find survivors and learn what we're really dealing with." The UES Horizon moved carefully through the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet. The crew knew they were entering unknown danger, but they also knew that someone had to discover the truth about these mysterious attackers. Earth and all of human space might depend on what they learned in the ruins of the Zephyrian Commonwealth. As the ship approached the first damaged planet, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. There were still ships in the system, massive vessels with designs unlike anything in the galactic databases. The creatures that had destroyed the Zephyrians were still here, and the human ship was heading straight toward them. The UES Horizon moved slowly through the debris field around what used to be Zephyria Prime. Captain Brooks watched the main screen as his ship passed through twisted metal and burning wreckage. The destruction was complete. Entire cities had been melted into glass. The planet's blue oceans now glowed with a sickly green light. Dr. Torres worked at her science station, scanning the remains of the Zephyrian homeworld. Her instruments detected radiation levels that should have been impossible. The energy readings showed temperatures hot enough to melt steel, yet somehow the planet still held together. "Captain, I'm getting life signs," called Lieutenant Peters from sensors. "There's a damaged ship about 2 kilometers off our port side. It's barely holding together, but someone is alive in there." Captain Brooks turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel. Let's see if we can talk to them." The response came immediately. The voice was weak and filled with pain, but the universal translator made the words clear. Please help us. We're the last survivors from Transport Ship 7. Our engines are failing, says Captain Brooks of the Earth vessel Horizon, he replied. We're coming to help you. You tell us what happened here? There was a long pause before the alien voice answered. The Forsaken came 3 days ago. They destroyed everything. We tried to fight, but our weapons did nothing to them. They changed our world into something horrible. Kevin Walsh stepped forward. Captain, I recommend bringing them aboard in the cargo bay. We can set up medical facilities there and keep them isolated until we know more about what we're dealing with. Captain Brooks nodded. Make it happen. Dr. Torres, I want you to examine these survivors personally. We need to understand what attacked them. The rescue operation took 2 hours. The Zephyrian ship was badly damaged, with holes burned completely through its hull. The metal around the damage had melted and reformed in strange patterns. It looked like the ship had been attacked with weapons that used acid or some kind of corrosive energy. 17 Zephyrian survivors were brought aboard the Horizon. They were led by Ambassador Thalanine, a tall alien with pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly in the ship's lights. The Zephyrians walked on 4 legs and had long, graceful arms that ended in delicate hands. Under normal circumstances, they were beautiful creatures. Now they looked terrified and broken. Dr. Torres met the survivors in the cargo bay, which had been converted into a temporary medical facility. She had studied Zephyrian biology before, but seeing them in person was different. They moved with fluid grace, despite their obvious injuries and exhaustion. Ambassador Thalanine, Dr. Torres said through the universal translator, I am Dr. Torres. We want to help you, but we need to understand what attacked your people. Zephyrian Ambassador looked at her with large, dark eyes that seemed to hold tremendous sadness. Your species is unknown to us, Dr. Torres. You call yourselves humans, yes? Should leave this place immediately. The Forsaken will return, and when they do, they will kill you as easily as they killed us. Tell us about these Forsaken, Dr. Torres said gently. What do they look like? How do they fight? Ambassador Thalanine was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice shook with remembered fear. They are not like any species we have ever seen. Their bodies are part machine and part flesh, but not in any way that makes sense. They can survive in the vacuum of space without protection. They breathe gases that would kill us instantly. Their skin can withstand temperatures that melt our strongest metals. Dr. Torres took notes as the ambassador continued. Their ships are not built like normal vessels. They seem to grow rather than being constructed. When they attack, they do not simply destroy. They change everything around them. They make planets into places where only they can live. Kevin Walsh had been listening to the conversation from across the cargo bay. He approached the group with several of his security officers. Ambassador, can you tell us about their weapons? What kind of technology do they use? Technology? Ambassador Thalanine made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. They barely use weapons as we understand them. They simply touch our ships, and the metal begins to dissolve. They release gases into our atmosphere, and everything living begins to die. They are not just warriors, they are living disasters. Captain Brooks joined the group. He'd been reviewing the sensor data from the damaged planet. Ambassador, our scans showed that your homeworld has been changed at a fundamental level. The atmosphere is now poisonous to most known life forms. How is this possible? The Forsaken do not just conquer worlds, the ambassador explained. They remake them. They change the air, the water, even the ground itself. They turn every planet. They visit into a copy of their own world. We learn too late that their homeworld is a place of fire and poison where nothing else can survive. Dr. Torres felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying they can change an entire planet's environment? In just a few days? Yes, Ambassador Thalanine replied. Our scientists believe they use some form of biological weapon that spreads through the atmosphere. Once it begins, the change cannot be stopped. Within hours, the air becomes acid. The oceans boil. Splits open and burns with strange fire. Samantha Reed had been analyzing the damage to the Zephyrian ship. She approached the group with her portable scanner in hand. Ambassador, I've been studying your ship's hull damage. The metal wasn't just melted. It was changed into something else entirely. Our computers can't even identify what it's become. The Forsaken do not use heat weapons, Ambassador Thalanine explained. They use something much worse. They change matter itself. Metal becomes like liquid. Plastic turns into gas. Even our strongest armor provides no protection. Captain Brooks studied the data on his portable tablet. How many ships do they have? How large is their force? We do not know, the ambassador replied. They appeared suddenly at the edge of our space 3 weeks ago. At first there were only 3 ships, but more kept arriving. By the end, we counted over 50 vessels, each one larger than our biggest battleships. Lieutenant Peters contacted Captain Brooks through his communicator. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer system. Several large objects are heading in our direction. Captain Brooks felt his stomach tighten.
How long?
Until they reach us. At their current speed, about 6 hours, Peters replied. Kevin Walsh immediately activated his security alert. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Unknown hostile forces approaching. Ambassador Thalanine grabbed Dr. Torres's arm with one of her delicate hands. You must leave now. Your ship cannot fight them. No one can fight them. They will kill you all and then use your ship to spread to other worlds. Captain Brooks made a quick decision. We're not running. We came here to learn about these creatures, and that's what we're going to do. Kevin, get all our weapons ready. Samantha, can you give me more power to the shields? Captain, with respect, you don't understand, Ambassador Thalanine said desperately. The Forsaken are not just another enemy. They're death itself given form. Your weapons will not hurt them. Your shields will not stop them. They will board your ship and change it into something horrible. Dr. Torres looked at the sensor readings on her scanner. Captain, the energy signatures from those approaching ships are unlike anything in our database. The power levels are enormous. Then, we'll learn something new, Captain Brooks replied grimly. All department heads to the bridge. We're about to make first contact with these Forsaken, and I want to be ready. Is the human crew prepared for battle? Ambassador Thalanine and the other. Zephyrian survivors huddled together in the cargo bay. They had seen what the Forsaken could do. They knew that the brave humans who had rescued them were about to face an enemy that could not be defeated by conventional means. The Forsaken ships continued their approach toward the UES horizon. Soon, humanity would discover whether their weapons and courage would be enough to survive an encounter with creatures that had turned an entire civilization into ash and poisonous gas in less than 3 weeks. The bridge of the UES horizon was quiet except for the soft beeping of instruments. Captain Brooks sat in his command chair watching the main screen as 3 massive alien ships approached. The Forsaken vessels looked like nothing he had ever seen before. They were dark and twisted, with surfaces that seemed to shift and move like living skin. Distance to target, Captain Brooks asked. 500,000 kilometers and closing, Lieutenant Peters reported. They're moving slowly, almost like they're studying us. Dr. Torres looked up from her science station. Captain, I'm getting very strange readings from those ships. The whole material appears to be organic, but it's also giving off energy signatures that suggest advanced technology. Kevin Walsh stood at the tactical station, his hands ready over the weapon controls. All weapons are charged and ready, Captain. Shields are at maximum power. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from the lead alien ship. On screen, Captain Brooks ordered. The main view screen filled with an image that made several crew members step backward in shock. The creature, looking at them, was a nightmare made real. Its head was partly metal and partly rotting flesh. Multiple eyes glowed red in what might have been a face. When it spoke, poisonous green gas leaked from gaps in its artificial breathing apparatus. Weak beings, the creature said in a voice like grinding metal, you have entered Forsaken space. Your soft flesh will feed our young. Your ship will become part of our fleet. Surrender now, and your death will be quick. Captain Brooks stood up from his chair. This is Captain Ryan Brooks of the Earth's vessel Horizon. We are here on a rescue mission. We have no hostile intentions toward your people. The Forsaken creature made a sound that might have been laughter. Your intentions do not matter, flesh creature. You breathe the sweet poison of clean air. You live in the cold death of normal space. You are weak like all the others we have. Consumed. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Captain Brooks replied calmly. The alien continued its threatening speech. Come from the burning worlds where acid rains fall like water. We swim in seas of liquid metal, eat radiation and drink the fire of dying stars. Your pathetic species cannot possibly resist us. Dr. Torres had been analyzing the transmission while the creature spoke. She looked up at Captain Brooks with a strange expression on her face. Captain, I need to speak with you privately. It's urgent. Captain Brooks nodded to Kevin Walsh, who took temporary command of the bridge. The captain followed Dr. Torres to a quiet corner of the bridge where they could speak without being overheard. Captain, Dr. Torres whispered excitedly. I've been analyzing their broadcast. They're describing their home environment, and it's not as extreme as they think it is. What do you mean? Captain Brooks asked. They mentioned acid rain, high radiation, extreme temperatures, and toxic atmospheres, Dr. Torres explained. By galactic standards, that would be considered a very hostile environment. But by Earth standards, it sounds like a slightly more dangerous version of Venus. Captain Brooks stared at her. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Captain, humans evolved on one of the most hostile planets in the known galaxy, Dr. Torres said with growing excitement. These forsaken creatures think they're the ultimate survivors. But they've never encountered a species from a real death world. Before Captain Brooks could respond, the Forsaken ship launched what appeared to be boarding pods toward the horizon. The small craft moved quickly through space, their surfaces glowing with heat. Red alert, Captain Brooks announced as he returned to his command chair. All hands prepare for boarding action. Kevin, can our weapons stop those pods? Firing now, Kevin replied. The Horizon's plasma cannons shot bright beams of energy at the approaching pods. The beams struck their targets but seemed to have no effect. The alien craft continued their approach, their hulls absorbing the weapon fire like it was nothing. Captain, they're about to attach to our hull, Lieutenant Peters reported. I count 12 boarding pods making contact with decks 7 through 9. In the cargo bay, Ambassador Thalanine heard the alert signals and knew what was happening. The Forsaken are boarding your ship, she told the human medical staff who were caring for the Zephyrian survivors. You must run. When they come, they will fill the air with poison that kills everything living. Dr. Martinez, the ship's head medical officer, looked confused. Poison? What kind of poison? They release gases from their bodies that dissolve the lungs of any creature that breathes them, Ambassador Thalanine explained frantically. Your people cannot survive it. On Deck 8, Marine Sergeant Paul Anderson and his squad took positions near the area where the alien pods had attached. To the hull, they could hear strange drilling sounds as the Forsaken creatures cut through the ship's outer armor. Remember your training? Sergeant Anderson told his men. These things might look scary, but they still bleed. Keep your shots concentrated and watch each other's backs. The hull finally gave way, and the first Forsaken warrior climbed through the breach. It was even more terrifying in person than it had been on the view screen. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall with arms that ended in metal claws. Its body was covered in a mixture of natural armor and mechanical parts. Poisonous gas leaked constantly from vents in its artificial breathing system. Weak air breathers, the creature hissed as it stepped into the ship's corridor. You will die quickly in the pure atmosphere of the Forsaken. Sergeant Anderson raised his rifle and fired. The bullet struck the alien in the chest, causing it to stagger backward. Dark fluid leaked from the wound, but the creature did not fall. More Forsaken warriors poured through the breach. They immediately began releasing clouds of toxic gas from their breathing apparatus. The gas was meant to kill any oxygen-breathing species within seconds. Gas masks, Sergeant Anderson ordered. His Marines quickly put on their protective gear and continued fighting. The Forsaken warriors seemed confused. Their poison gas attack, which had killed thousands of Zephyrian defenders, was having no effect on the humans. The Marines continued to fight effectively, even while breathing through their protective equipment. Corporal Michelle Davis found herself in close combat with one of the aliens. The creature was strong and fast, but she had trained for years in hand-to-hand fighting. When the alien's mechanical breathing mask was damaged during the struggle, she grabbed it and twisted hard. The mask came off completely, exposing the Forsaken warrior to the ship's normal atmosphere. The creature immediately began choking and gasping. Within minutes, it collapsed and died. Sergeant Corporal Davis called out in amazement. "I think their air is poisonous to them, not to us." On the bridge, Captain Brooks received reports from all the boarding sites. The pattern was the same everywhere. The Forsaken warriors were fierce fighters, but they were struggling to survive in the ship's normal environment of their poison gas. Attacks were ineffective against humans using standard protective equipment. Dr. Torres was studying the readings from her instruments. "Captain, the gas they're releasing is mostly sulfur compounds and acidic vapors. It would be deadly to most species, but humans have industrial safety equipment designed to handle much worse chemicals. What about their physical capabilities?" Captain Brooks asked. "They're strong and tough, but not beyond human limits," Dr. Torres replied. "Captain, I think we're dealing with a species that has never encountered anything as adaptable as humans. They're used to being the most dangerous thing in any environment." Kevin Walsh looked up from his tactical station with a grin on his face. "Captain, our boarding parties are reporting successful resistance on all decks. The aliens are retreating back to their pods." Through the ship's communication system, they could hear Sergeant Anderson's voice. "All alien boarders have been repelled. We have several wounded but no deaths. The enemy left behind some of their equipment and 3 bodies." Captain Brooks felt a strange mix of relief and excitement. "Dr. Torres, I want you to examine everything the aliens left behind. I have a feeling we're about to learn something very important about our new enemies." As the Forsaken boarding pods detached from the horizon and returned to their mother ships, Captain Brooks realized that humanity had just passed its first test against the galaxy's most feared predators. The question now was whether the Forsaken would recognize that they had finally met their match. News of the battle aboard the UES Horizon spread quickly through both human and alien communication networks. Admiral Patricia Hayes received the report at Earth Command while reviewing supply lists for the outer colonies. When she finished reading Captain Brooks's detailed account, she sat back in her chair and stared at the wall for several minutes. "Get me a direct line to Captain Brooks," she told her communications officer, "and contact Fleet Command. We need to mobilize every available ship." Aboard the Horizon, Dr. Torres worked in the ship's main laboratory, examining the equipment. Left behind by the Forsaken warriors, the alien breathing apparatus was more complex than anything she had ever seen. It appeared to filter normal atmosphere and add toxic chemicals that the aliens needed to survive. "This is incredible," Dr. Torres said to her assistant, Dr. Kim Peterson. "Their breathing system doesn't just protect them from hostile environments. It actually creates a hostile environment around them wherever they go." Captain Brooks entered the laboratory with Kevin Walsh and Samantha Reed. "What have you learned, Doctor?" Dr. Torres held up a piece of the alien breathing equipment. "Captain, these creatures are not adapted to survive in extreme conditions. They're adapted to create extreme conditions wherever they are. They turn normal environments into something that matches their home world." "Explain that in simple terms," Captain Brooks requested. "Imagine if humans could only survive underwater," Dr. Torres said. "We would need to carry water with us everywhere we went. That's what these aliens are doing, except instead of water, they carry poison, gas, and acid." Kevin Walsh examined one of the alien weapons. "Their technology is impressive, but it's all designed around their environmental needs. These energy weapons don't just damage targets, they change the chemical composition of whatever they hit." Reed had been studying the damaged areas of the ship where the aliens had cut through the hull. "Captain, look at this. They didn't use tools to get through our armor. Their claws actually secrete some kind of acid that dissolves metal. So they're living chemical weapons," Captain Brooks said thoughtfully. "No wonder they've been so successful." Against other species, Dr. Torres pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy's known inhabited worlds. "Captain, I've been reviewing the database of planetary environments. Most intelligent species evolved on worlds that humans would consider paradise planets. Clean air, stable temperatures, low radiation levels, and Earth," Captain Brooks asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Dr. Torres replied. It's considered one of the most hostile planets in the galaxy, capable of supporting complex life. High radiation, extreme weather, dangerous atmosphere composition, unstable geology, and frequent mass extinction events. 3 days later, Admiral Hayes arrived with a full battle fleet consisting of 12 heavy cruisers and 30 escort vessels. The flagship U.S. Defiance took position near the horizon while the rest of the fleet spread out in defensive formation. Commander Gary Turner, Admiral Hayes's tactical officer, studied the sensor readings from the Forsaken ships. Admiral, the enemy fleet has grown to over 60 vessels. They seem to be gathering for a major assault. Are they heading for human space? Admiral Hayes asked. Not yet, Commander Turner replied. Intelligence reports suggest they're planning to attack the Galactic Council headquarters at Alpha Centauri. If they succeed there, they'll control most of the major space lanes. Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Scott, the fleet's intelligence chief, had been analyzing intercepted Forsaken communications. Admiral, we've learned something interesting. The Forsaken have a collective mind system. They share information instantly across their entire species. What does that mean for us? Tomorrow, Hayes asked. It means they now know everything about our encounter with them, Colonel Scott explained. They know our weapons can hurt them, and they know their poison gas doesn't work on us. They're changing their tactics. On the planet's surface, Marine, Colonel Steve Parker led a reconnaissance mission to examine one of the Forsaken base camps.
Yes.
His team included Major Alex Reed, Captain Janet Foster, and Lieutenant Karen Walsh. They moved carefully through the ruins of what had once been a Zephyrian city. The changes the Forsaken had made to the environment were shocking. The air burned their throats even through their protective masks. The ground was covered with a black substance that bubbled and steamed. Pools of acid had replaced the city's beautiful fountains. Colonel Major Reed reported through his radio. I'm reading atmospheric composition that would kill most known species in under 5 minutes. How bad is it compared to Earth environments? Colonel Parker asked. Major Reed checked his instruments. It's about as toxic as the air near an active volcano, sir. Dangerous, but manageable with proper equipment. Captain Foster discovered something interesting near what had been the city's central plaza. Colonel, you need to see this. The aliens have been building some kind of breeding facility. The structure was unlike anything in human or alien architecture. It seemed to grow from the ground like a plant, but it was made of metal and organic materials fused together. Steam and poisonous gas leaked from openings in its walls. What are they breeding in there? Colonel Parker asked. Lieutenant Walsh checked your scanner readings. Life signs indicate juvenile Forsaken, sir. According to these readings, they can't survive outside this facility. They need the artificial environment to live. The revelation hit Colonel Parker immediately. They're not just terraforming planets for conquest. They're terraforming them because they have to. Their young can't survive in normal environments. Back in space, the Forsaken fleet finally made its move. The alien ships approached the human fleet in a formation that had never failed them before. They began broadcasting their standard intimidation message, describing the horrible fate that awaited any species foolish enough to oppose them. Admiral Hayes listened to the broadcast with growing amusement. The aliens were threatening to expose humans to radiation levels that were lower than normal background radiation on Earth. They promised to subject human prisoners to atmospheric conditions that were less toxic than the air in Earth's industrial cities. Open a channel to the enemy fleet, Admiral Hayes ordered, when the communication link was established. Admiral Hayes looked directly at the lead Forsaken commander. This is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've received your list of threats, and frankly, you're offering us a vacation compared to our home world. The Forsaken commander looked confused. You cannot survive the pure environment of our people. No species has ever resisted our atmospheric weapons. Let me explain something to you, Admiral Hayes said calmly. Humans evolved on a planet with an atmosphere so toxic that most of your people would need protective equipment just to visit. We consider radiation levels that would kill your warriors to be a mild health concern. Dr. Torres had joined Admiral Hayes on the bridge of the Defiance. She stepped forward to address the alien commander. Your species terraforms planets to create environments similar to your homeworld. Our species terraforms planets to make them less deadly than our homeworld? The Forsaken commander's multiple eyes flickered with what might have been fear. Impossible. Our homeworld of Zereth Prime has surface temperatures of 200 degrees. Our oceans are liquid acid. Our atmosphere would dissolve the lungs of any oxygen-breathing species. That sounds lovely, Admiral Hayes replied. We've been thinking about retiring somewhere warm. Is your planet available for tourism? The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. When the Forsaken commander finally spoke again, his voice had lost its confident tone. What manner of creatures are you? We're humans, Dr. Torres answered. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. Your planet sounds like a health resort compared to Earth. The first shots of the battle were fired by the Forsaken fleet, but their heart was no longer in the fight. For the first time in their species' history, they had encountered beings who were more adapted to extreme conditions than they were. The psychological impact was devastating. The Forsaken had built their entire identity around being the galaxy's ultimate survivors. Now they faced creatures who considered their deadliest weapons to be minor inconveniences. The battle in space lasted only 3 hours, but it changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about survival. Admiral Hayes watched from the bridge of the UES Defiance as Forsaken ships retreated one by one. The aliens who had terrorized entire civilizations were running from humans. Admiral Commander Turner reported, "The enemy fleet is breaking formation. Most of their ships are heading back toward their home system." "Let them go," Admiral Hayes ordered. "But keep our sensors locked on their lead ship. I want to know where they're going." Dr. Torres studied the readings from the battle. "Admiral, their weapon effectiveness dropped by 60% during the engagement. I think they're having trouble concentrating on fighting when they're also trying to understand how we can survive their attacks." 3 weeks later, the human fleet arrived at the Forsaken home system. What they found was not what anyone expected. The system contained 5 planets orbiting a red giant star. Each world glowed with heat and radiation that would instantly kill most known species. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Peters as he looked at the sensor readings. "The surface temperature on their homeworld is over 300 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere is 90% sulfuric acid." General Frank Mitchell, commanding the ground assault forces, studied the planetary data with interest. "It's hot, but our Marines trained in the thermal caves on Mars. This shouldn't be too different." Colonel Laura Thompson, leader of the aerospace wing, reviewed the atmospheric analysis. "Air composition is nasty, but we've operated in worse during the Venus terraforming project. We'll need protective gear, but it's manageable." Admiral Hayes made a decision that would become famous throughout the galaxy. "We're going down to their homeworld. It's time to end this war with a face-to-face meeting." The landing operation began 2 days later. Colonel Parker led the first wave of Marines to the surface of Zereth Prime. The Forsaken homeworld was a landscape of molten rock and acid lakes. Steam rose from the ground, and the sky glowed red from volcanic activity. Atmospheric readings. "Our stable," reported Major Reed through his protective suit radio. "Radiation levels are high, but within acceptable limits for short-term exposure." Captain Foster's team established a landing zone near what appeared to be a major Forsaken city. The alien buildings were massive structures that seemed to grow from the volcanic rock itself. Heat and poisonous gas leaked from every opening. Colonel Lieutenant Walsh called out, "We're getting movement from the city. Large numbers of aliens are approaching our position." The Forsaken warriors who emerged from their city moved slowly and carefully. They wore their heaviest protective armor and carried weapons designed for their most dangerous combat situations. They had never needed such equipment on their own homeworld before. Colonel Parker stepped forward to meet the alien delegation. The leader was the same Forsaken commander who had spoken to Admiral Hayes during the space battle. Even through his protective armor, the alien looked exhausted and defeated. "You should not be able to survive here," the Forsaken commander said. "This is our world. This is where we are strongest." "We're not here to conquer your world," Colonel Parker replied through his suit's external speaker. "We're here to talk." The negotiations took place in a natural amphitheater formed by cooled lava flows. Representatives from both species sat Across from each other in an environment that had been designed by nature to test the limits of survival, Ambassador Morrison, Jake's brother who had arrived with the diplomatic team, served as the primary human negotiator. He had studied alien psychology for 20 years, but he had never dealt with a situation like this. Your people have attacked and destroyed several innocent civilizations, Ambassador Morrison said to the Forsaken Leadership Council. Why? Forsaken High Commander, an ancient alien whose body was more machine than flesh, answered slowly. We believed we were the galaxy's ultimate survivors. We thought all other species were weak and inferior. We were wrong. Dr. Torres, who had joined the diplomatic mission, asked the question that everyone wanted answered. How many species have you destroyed? 43 civilizations completely eliminated, the High Commander replied. Hundreds of colonies and outposts wiped out. We thought we were making the galaxy stronger by removing the weak. The weight of that confession settled over the human delegation like a heavy blanket. 43 entire species had been destroyed by aliens, who now sat in heavy protective gear on their own homeworld, while humans wore only basic environmental suits. What will you do now? Ambassador Morrison asked. The High Commander was quiet for a long time, and he finally spoke. His voice carried a sadness that the universal translator could barely convey. We will try to learn how to live without destroying. Your species has shown us that survival is not about being the most dangerous. It is about being the most adaptable. 6 months later, Ambassador Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new Deep Space Station Unity 1. The station orbited, a neutral planet between human and former Forsaken territory. Through the large windows, he could see something that no one had thought possible. Human children played in the station's central park, alongside young Forsaken who had been carefully adapted to survive in normal atmospheric conditions. The young aliens wore breathing apparatus that filtered clean air instead of creating toxic clouds. They moved carefully, still learning how to exist in an environment their species had spent millions of years trying to avoid. Dr. Torres had spent months working with Forsaken scientists to develop the technology that made this possible. The process was slow and difficult, but it was working. Young Forsaken could now survive in what their species called soft environments for several hours at a time. It's amazing, Dr. Torres said as she joined Ambassador Morrison at the window. 6 months ago, these two species were trying to kill each other. Now look at them. Admiral Hayes, now serving as military advisor to the Galactic Council, reviewed reports from across the galaxy. The Forsaken had not just stopped their attacks, they had begun helping to rebuild the civilizations they had destroyed. Their advanced terraforming technology, originally used to create hostile environments, was being modified to restore damaged worlds. Captain Brooks, promoted to admiral after his successful first contact mission, commanded the new joint exploration fleet. Human and Forsaken ships worked together to explore the dangerous regions of space that other species could not safely visit. Admiral Brooks, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a distress signal from the Rigel system. Unknown. Aliens are attacking the colonies there. Set course for Rigel," Admiral Brooks ordered. "Then send a message to the Forsaken fleet. Looks like the galaxy has new protectors. It's the UES Enterprise, humanity's newest and most advanced exploration vessel, jumped to hyperspace with a mixed crew of humans and reformed Forsaken. In the ship's recreational areas, human children who had grown up on mining colonies played games with young Forsaken who were learning to appreciate the beauty of clean air and normal gravity. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. The dangerous thing in the universe was not a species that evolved to be a predator. The most dangerous thing was a species that evolved to survive anything the universe could throw at it. Humans had spent millions of years on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had learned to adapt, to overcome, and to survive in conditions that would destroy most other life forms. When they finally reached the stars, they brought that same determination with them. The Forsaken, once the galaxy's most feared species, had become humanity's partners in protecting the peaceful civilizations of the galaxy. Together they patrolled the dangerous regions of space where few others dared to go, and in the depths of space, where new threats might one day emerge, both. Species stood ready to prove that sometimes the best guardians are those who learn to call hell their home.